Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Hey, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. It is August 14th, 2016, and I'm in the mountains of North Carolina. And the world is a perplexing place right now. Lots of things going on. Seems like, as a friend of mine phoned me the other day, it seems like everything is strangely quiet right now in the world. Could it be the calm before the storm? We know the Olympics are on, and we know the intense heat here in North Carolina, and from my research, a lot of places around the world, is still continuing. And I rather doubt that it's the cause of emissions from power plants or people's cars. CO2, which I exhaust when I breathe in oxygen, is the food for all these plants behind me. And if there were such a thing as real global warming, wouldn't that open up all of northern Canada and Russia? Probably half the landmass on the planet? There would be an abundance of resources and agriculture and food and places for people to build. Beyond belief. Then, of course, we got Fukushima spewing radiation into the Pacific, so they say. And sea life dying, so they say. And you know me, I believe it to a degree. But I probably need to find my way to make a trip out there and see for myself. But I am aware that I did leave Florida for a similar concern. When I was younger in Florida, there were shrimp and crabs and trout and all kinds of sea life. You could go snorkeling and it was just great. I'm an outdoors type of guy. But a lot of that has died. One reason is because the people who rule our planet, the corporations, and stuff like that, governments, the sewerage plants, the processed sewage from your home and businesses, they were dumping the silt, black, inky stuff, containing a lot of solids, into the intercoastal ways. And that silk lined the bottom of the estuaries and the intercoastal waters and probably even out in the ocean. It killed off the seabed or riverbeds or lake beds for the animals, fish, turtles, dolphins, shrimp, live. So yeah, the water, I saw that everything was dead, dying. And I figured if all that stuff is dying and dead, I may as well move on. This is not the place for me. So I came to the mountains. And I was getting older, and I just didn't want to be in a huge city approaching retirement someday. And we got threats of World War III, this heat going on, economic chaos, threats of the dollar crashing. We got a crazy election going on. And a new age and new world order seems like it's pushing forward like a freight train. And nothing can stop it. But I think a little knowledge might go a long ways. This video is going to be interesting and a little difficult. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't want to be pointing the finger there or there, but somebody or some buddies are at fault. And the people who have been controlling our world, in World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, war between the North and the South United States, German Revolution after World War I, Russian Revolution after World War I, Chinese Revolution, bringing in communists to that country, Korean War, and so many more, all these small wars and presidents and leaders assassinated, whistleblowers and other people who know things assassinated, spying on all the people. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Something is wrong. Or is there really a targeted culprit throughout history that we can blame? Is it some Jewish people? Is it some reptilian, alien, half-breed, human, reptilian DNA entities? Is it the non-physical reality, the spiritual realm? Is there a cosmic battle? Just kinds of crazy questions. And the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States gives me the right to free speech and free thought. I believe I and other people should be able to ask questions and discuss things freely in an irrational manner. And if there is a group of people, Freemasons, Illuminati, Rosicrucians, witchcraft, Kabbalah, Zionist, Talmudic Jewish people, and all the other mystery school of Babylon cults, temples, and lodges, secret organizations operating behind the scenes. Bilderberger Group, Club of Rome, Bohemian Grove, where they're throwing a baby into a burning fire on a giant owl called Moloch. What the heck is going on? That's how I started this whole series. And my research. Just wanted to know what's going on. As a businessman who owned his own business and his clients were clearly losing money after 9/11. What about 9/11? Obviously, that's been exposed to be an inside job. Boston bombing, Sandy Hook shooting, and many of the others have questionable characteristics to those events as reported in many videos on YouTube and alternate websites. And now, these days, a lot of this stuff is coming right out in the regular media, including one politician said, the New World Order is here. We may as well get used to it. So what is the New World Order, New Age? Is it the worldwide thing that the rabbi or PhD Professor Higger said in the book called The Jewish Utopia? Is it what is described in the Protocols of Zion? Is it what is in the report from Iron Mountain, that book written in 1967 by one of the people selected to create situations in America to keep the people under their control, and patriotic in the event of peace, because they figured with nuclear weapons we really couldn't have another war. So how do you motivate the people and, get them to hate the Arabs? How do you get the Arabs to hate the Americans? How do you get the whites to hate the blacks? How do you get the blacks to hate the whites? Men to hate the women? Gays to hate the straights? The Hegelian dialectic. What catalyst do you cause to bring this hate about? And if you bring this hate about, do you get everybody fighting each other? Which is a traditional tactic of the Jewish people in history. Even during the Crusades, the Jewish people were the procurers of supplies for the Crusades, and advisors to kings and queens, and the Vatican, and the financiers. And even in the Bible, Jesus overturns the money changers' tables. So is there a common denominator? Should we, as per the First Amendment of the Constitution, exercise our free speech and our freedom to think? And in doing so, might we avert World War III, which is prophesied even by Albert Pike, pious leading member of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry during between the war, the North and the South in the United States in the 1880s and 1870s. Southern jurisdiction, Albert Pike. He wrote a letter to a friend of his in Italy, Messini, I think, and you can look it up, and said that there would be 3 world wars required to bring about the New World Order. Okay, who wants the New World Order? The battle There's always sort of been between the industrialists or the leaders, kings and queens, and the masses of people working. And ideally, I guess they would like to try to create human beings who are more like animals and cattle, who will be happy with a little morsel of food and a little cage to live in. So the elites can live an opulent life, wealth, castles, food, wine, women, boys, children for sex. So much more. It's insane. There's something fundamentally mentally wrong with some people who think that they need to decrease the age for children's consent for sex and eliminate it altogether. In other words, they're pushing the envelope. They went with the gay agenda since 2008-76, where it was only 25-30% approval for gay marriage, to now it's 25-30% not approval. And they have spent our tax dollars, and they control the United States, nations, and used propaganda with the movies, the TV, the cartoons, education in schools, etc., etc., making everybody have empathy and cry for the gay people. Why can't you support love? And then goes further. Transgenderism, Ashley Madison. You can have an adulterous affair and cheat on your spouse, confidentiality guaranteed. And all the other shenanigans. Child trafficking. Anyways, it just seems like in the last couple hundred years, there has been this force of people who has bringing the decadent, anti-family culture to the world. So this is video number 97, closing in on my 100 video series target. Of course, on a lot of these books, I made more than one video. I get tongue-tied when I keep talking. This is the book. I talked about it a lot. When I read it many years ago, I wasn't highlighting my material like this. So when I make videos, I actually don't have to read the book. I can just read my highlighted notations because I pre-read it and selected it. So I've read so far, reread I should say, let's see, 80, about 100 pages or more on two different chapters. One is Kurdoff and Thiasin, and these were people who were involved in the industry and had to aid Hitler to come into power. And then Ford and Hitler was the other one I read. So what did Henry Ford, the automaker, have to do with Hitler? And does it matter? So I'm going to read, like I do here, start in the middle of what I want to get across on this video. And if I have time on this video, I'll go back to the beginning of this chapter. Because usually the second half of a chapter is more interesting than the first half. Because the first half is a lot of build-up to the climatic material. So, with that in mind, Ford and Hitler. So let's see where I want to start here. I usually underline very important things. So, they needed to get Ford's support for the National Socialistic Party in Germany. and other people. But I'll read here and let you decide for yourself what you think. Here we go. Page 112. Hitler's vehement protest against the injustices of the Versailles Treaty were secretly applauded by the American industrialist. Not only did the trade restrictions set up by the Versailles Treaty hurt Germany, they also hurt American businessmen who operated in foreign markets such as Ford, the automaker. America could benefit from trade with Europe only if Europe recovered from the destruction of World War I. And as the economist J. Maynard Keynes said, Europe could be made prosperous only by making Germany prosperous. As a boy, Ford had worked for a toolmaker from Germany who taught him many useful things. He liked Germans because they are a talented and thrifty people. In the 1920s, Ford wanted us to set up a factory in Germany where he could benefit from the availability of skilled labor. Well enough. In the early 1920s, there was nothing illegal about the Nazi Party, so Ford had every right to give his support openly. However, just as most political funding is secretive, it was obviously more prudent for Ford that there be no evidence linking his name with the radical Rightist Party. Rightist Party versus the communist socialist left. Now, for the record, I'm a moderate. If the far left is way over here and the far right is over here, I think those extremes should be not allowed, and something more in the middle for the two parties. Because if we go all the way to the extreme for socialism, it's not going to work. A lot of people are not going to get a cup of rice a day and a cup of water a day and a little tiny box to live in and be motivated to go to work, like cattle. So communism, socialism to the extreme won't work. Capitalism to the extreme won't work. If they control all the money and they don't want to have any benevolent compassion for the people and share and have everybody living in boxes and dumps and this terrible conditions with disease, that's not going to work. It's just logical. So there needs to be a happy medium in the middle. So that would be me. But I suspect the people who want the New World Order are using the far right and the far left for their purposes to destroy the culture as we know it. Just to keep that in the back of your mind. We know, I know, and a lot of people are aware and believe that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party in the United States of America are controlled by the same puppet masters, which appear are the Zionist Jewish and other Mystery School of Babylon people into these Freemasons, Illuminati, Rosicrucian, Theophist societies, Kabbalah, Zionism, Jesuits, and elitist groups, Bohemian Grove, Knights of Malta, Knights Colombo, Bilderberger groups, Club of Rome, who really don't care about the masses of people. And we, the masses of people, don't use our God-given brain and think and start making better decisions because these people are not going to make them for us. So let me get back to reading. The primary intermediaries between Ford and Hitler were the White Russians. Now remember, and I'm sorry to keep repeating myself, but prior to World War I, Russia was a big country. And Russia was having a lot of problems with the Jewish people in that country. Good or bad, I'm not trying to argue that on this sentence. But they were having problems. And they were coming down hard on those Jewish people for whatever those Jewish people were doing and problems they were causing. And they were limiting these people and trying to regulate their activities. Anyways, a lot of them were fleeing to Germany, who was welcoming them. And Germany was, before World War I, was a hugely successful industrial country with coal and steel and iron. And look where it's located on the map, closer to China and India and the Far East and all of the central Mediterranean, closer than England, closer than Italy. Of course, Italy's right there on the water. Closer than France, closer than Spain. So apparently the beef that caused World War I was that England, Britain, was losing, its empire was shrinking, its control, and Germany's was increasing. And that, according to these elites, had to be stopped. And I think that's why they want to destroy the USA, because it's a strong nation with a lot of people who are decent people, and they're using the TV, the propaganda, the decadent society, all this stuff, and trying to destroy Christianity and defame Jesus and all this other stuff to destroy the USA. This is part of their modus operandi, and I think it'll become clear as I continue to read on this book. Trained as a lawyer, Brazel had gained investigative experience serving as the assistant to the anti-Semitic Russian Minister of Justice Shogoty, who organized the infamous Belis trial against an innocent Jew accused of ritual murder. As chairman of the Association of the Russian Army and Navy Officers, Brazel came to America in 1917, followed by his friend Major General Count Cherub Spiridovich, and together these two fanatical Caesarists collaborated with all kinds of right-wing groups to further the restoration of the monarchy in Russia. So I do see a slight taint in this book, and I may be wrong because there's some other information, that they're trying to take a side towards the destruction of Russia and in favor of the Jewish people. But on the other hand, they expose a lot of information that speaks for itself. According to Peter Koltopin, former assistant to Boris Brazel, Brazel's primary goal was to alert America to the danger of communism, not to obtain U.S. support for the Russian restoration movement. Author's interview with Peter Koltopin. So here we go, starting some of the information to set off our alarms and go, wait a minute, what did I just read? Alert America to the danger of communism. And we know they changed the names. Now they make people giggle if they say communism. Oh, you don't believe in that, do you? Lucifer, you don't believe in that either, do you? Aliens, you don't believe in that? Well, hey, God, you don't believe in that. Jesus, you don't believe in that. You don't believe in anything. Nihilism. Just saying, that's what they want everybody to believe. Nothing. And I think there are things we should believe in. America, we Americans. Germans should believe in Germany. The French, the Italians, the Brazilians should believe in Brazil. Argentina. We know that in Israel, if you're not a Jewish person approved, you can't immigrate there. And if you are Jewish, no matter where you live in the world, they consider you a member of the Jewish race. And according to the material I read, no matter where you live, I don't care if you're a citizen of Canada, Mexico, America, anywhere, and you're Jewish, your first allegiance is to the Jewish race. Then why are a lot of our highly placed individuals in national security and all these other things, the Federal Reserve, why are all these people Jewish, and many more? And this is nothing nothing new to anybody. If their first allegiance is to Israel, why are they in charge of the United States? So they'll put United States second, which I am seriously opposed to. Anyways, moving on. Since America Did I just miss a page here? In 1918, Brasso was employed by the United States government for Secret Service work, a job which gave him an opportunity to introduce America intelligence officers to the Protocols of Zion. During the next 2 years, he worked hard to promote the publication and the circulation of the Protocols in the United States. The Protocols of Zion, if you don't know them or you haven't looked them up, you can get them free online. It is a detailed instruction manual on how they're going to take over the world and how they're going to treat us and what they think of us. If you read it, it might make you a little angry. So keep your anger in check and just try to educate your brain. In 1920, he was hired onto the writing staff of Ford's newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, and Henry Ford purchased the newspaper to publish material that all the other Jewish-owned newspapers would not publish. And the other newspapers that were not owned by the Jewish people, some Jewish people, wouldn't publish it either because, they get all their advertisements from the Jewish people, and they didn't want to be destroyed. So if you say anything bad about these people, they will destroy you one way or the other. So the truth is being suppressed, in my opinion. Where he provided much of the historical background and factual information to support Ford's accusation against the Jews. Remember, this is 1920. And FYI, if you didn't know, after World War I, when Germany lost, from 1914 to 1916, 17, then they spearheaded some secret agents, Marxists, into Russia, abducted the Tsar and his family and friends, and took them to a remote building out in the country. Took over the whole country, 25 million, some say 100 million Christians and other good people, not just Christians, were starved and murdered. They call it a purge. And the Christian churches destroyed, but not the Jewish temples. And they were setting up camps all over Europe with the Yiddish Jews from that Russian area, preparing them and teaching them on how to speak English and get ready to live in the United States, and exclusively shipping them into New York City. And it was causing a lot of cultural problems. And they took over and created the porn industry and the movie theaters and the liquor industry, according to the books I've read in Henry Ford's The Dearborn Independent and many other books, and a lot of people know this. And they even have books written right now, an empire of their own. Hollywood belongs to the Jews. A lot of people know that these Illuminati types own the newspapers, Rockefeller, Rothschild types, and all these others. So they were shipping these people from Europe, Eastern Europe, Yiddish Jews, and training them in camps, exclusively coming into New York City and other cities. And like right now, what they're doing with the Muslims, secretly at night shipping them here and dispersing them out throughout the small communities. Further diluting our culture, trying to destroy our nation, it seems. And I'm not a racist. I don't want the Brazilians or the Venezuelans, for that matter, who are being seriously destroyed right now. A country just flooded with gold and diamonds and oil. There's just no logical reason for starving those people to death. Unless you're the elites and you want to depopulate the planet and create the New World Order, New Age, which appears to be the truth, which you're going to see in some of the conversations in this book, if I ever get to it and keep reading. Sorry. Brossel's friend, Count Cherub Spirovich, also wrote a number of anti-Semitic pamphlets and books, such as The Secret World Government. We've all seen a lot of those books. And I'm only reading my highlighted portions here. I'm not reading a book. I don't want to infringe on copyright laws. I'm just doing a book review. I highly recommend you go buy this book. Form your own opinion. I'm sorry to see him in jail. What we should do from now on is to train leaders secretly. Keep them in the background so when they put us in the concentration camps, those leaders can keep up the movement. And here in the United States, we're aware of the FEMA camps and the government buying 450 million hollow point bullets, spying on everybody, putting drones and heavy equipment spreading it all over the United States. Jade Helm. Computer software programs, apparently, will run the show if they pull off some big event like a martial law. It won't even be human intervention. The computer will make an analysis, maybe something you said, maybe websites you looked at. And the name will pop up in a drone maybe targeting you, maybe a beam from some satellite in space, or maybe a truckload of army guys or National Guards will come to your house and whisk you off to a FEMA camp to get rid of all those people who might believe in conspiracy theories. And Jesus and Christianity. You believe in that, you're probably on the top of the list, according to my research. The Bavarian Diet has long had information that the Hitler movement was partly financed by an American anti-Semite leader, Henry Ford, the automaker. Mr. Ford's interest in the Bavarian anti-Semite movement began a year ago when one of Mr. Ford's agents seeking to sell tractors came into contact with Dietrich Eckart, the notorious Pan-German. So Pan-German means they wanted to expand Germany. In particular, they wanted to expand it eastward towards Russia, because Russia's a gigantic country, and Germany's just a small country, and apparently it was growing so big it wanted to expand its landmass. Some of the people. That would be Pan-Germanism. And again, page 118, moving on. Supposedly, Anderson believed that a virtual boycott of Ford products in Europe resulted from the publicity about Ford's attacks on the Jews. Anderson, who was regarded as one of the most competent men in the foreign field, made repeated requests, appeals, and finally demands that the Jewish attacks cease, but his efforts were in vain, and the attacks became even more bitter. So you can call them attacks, or you can just say there are people conspiring behind the scenes, like they did with Woodrow Wilson in 1913 over the Christmas holiday. You don't think it's a conspiracy? Christmas holiday, everybody else is on vacation. Congressmen, representatives, everybody. Washington, D.C. And that's when they created the agreement for the Federal Reserve, taking control of America's money supply and giving it to the Illuminati, Rothschild, Rockefellers. So you can't really call it a conspiracy. It was a done, in fact, thing that took America's sovereignty away. It gave control to these people who seem to have malevolent intentions towards the rest of us. They call us, the Jewish people, some of them, goy, goyim, which means cattle. The Freemasons call us profane, and H.G. Wells, in his book on the New World Order, said we're animals not to be trusted. So these elitists into these cults like the Rosicrucians, and I know there's a lot of videos out there that make them sound so nice, but anybody who swears allegiance to these organizations and to conceal all the secrets from the rest of us is very suspect in my mind. Yes? No? What are they hiding? But on the other hand, existing evidence shows that Anderson also complained about the inhumanity of Ford's racist propaganda. So Ford's trying to get the word out, and the National Socialist Party in Germany, about the people who control the world, the Zionist Jewish folks. And they did, and they do. And of course they had the repercussions of these world Jewish banksters and other people. And there's books written that they have intentions what they're going to do. Had to fight back. So it was this battle between telling the truth and suppressing the truth, in my opinion. Page 119. The outbreak of the war in 1914 put an end to all the performances, and even after the signing of the Versailles Peace Treaty, Beirut remained a ghost town. So apparently this composer, musician, Wagner, a couple of motorcycles zooming by. as you can imagine, after World War I, then they had a big thing called the Versailles Peace Treaty. And the financial obligations put on the Germans was horrendous. Nobody should be arguing that. That's common knowledge. It was crushing the German economy, which was the intent. And remember, in World War I, Germany was winning the war, and Detroit, Henry Ford's place of manufacturing cars, most of those people were German descendants. In Germany, America was pro-Germany. But the back door, the Jewish people, some of them, controlled President Woodrow Wilson. And they conspired with an event of a ferry sinking off the coast of Britain, and said some German U-boat sunk it. Later on, according to what I researched, they found out that was not a true case. But it gave Woodrow Wilson, president, the excuse to declare a war against Germany. And it was all conspired behind the scenes, according to my research, by some Jewish people who came up with an ingenious idea that England's losing the war, and that would be a big thing, losing a war, that we'll promise them to get the United States into the war and give them all the cash they need and support. If, after they win the war, they will annex the Palestinians' land so we can create the state of Israel. And there are books written before this ever happened describing what would happen, should anybody want to question what I just said. Theodore Herschel, the State of Israel, his book, and all planned, because I think Theodore Herschel worked for the Rothschilds press publishing company. So the dots keep connecting. So apparently there is this force out there. And according to Tex Mars and other people, apparently they are not pleased, to put it mildly, with Jesus and Christianity and decency. And they've always promoted, some of these people, decadency and perversion and porn and all this other insanity, sick stuff, wherever they have gone. Buying up liquor, Kentucky bourbon type of businesses, moving them to Louisville or Chicago, keeping the label of quality whiskey, but then when they get it there, they dilute it with 90% some other type of chemical and sell it to the public, and it poisoned the people. These people, not all Jewish people, but these ones into the Luciferic serpent worship, apparently, have no compassion for the rest of us. Now, Jesus, on the other hand, was preaching, treat others how you want to be treated. And, of course, he was crucified for that because the Pharisees, the Hebrew leaders, were jealous of his popularity. And during the crucifixion, when Pontius Pilate, the Roman leader, you can all look this up in the Bible, said, there's no way, I don't want to crucify this guy, the Son of God. I don't want that on my head. I think most of us would agree with that. Whoa, that's a big thing, you know. God sends down a prophet here, or his son, and in this man Jesus, who'd want to kill him? But the Jews in the crowd screamed up and repeated and chanted, let it be on our heads and our children's heads. So we do have this historic situation that's just probably not very good for the rest of us. Apparently, there's some seething bitterness that still exists. At the height of the anti-German war hysteria, musician Wagner, his operas were either shelved in the Allied countries or at best performed in modified translations, while mobs demonstrated against the treason of playing German music at all. So after World War I, it was probably pretty horrible to live in Germany if you were a German. And apparently there was a revolution and the Jewish people were in charge, and they were very brutal to the Germans. Strangely enough, as I said earlier in this video, when Russia was treating the Jews brutally, and they were fleeing to Germany, Germany opened welcome arms, was a good host, and they wound up becoming very prosperous. A lot of Jews weren't happy with the betrayal of the Balfour Agreement to help England beat Germany in the war. Germany was winning, because they loved it in Germany. But they have to obey their masters too, at the top of this pyramid. Page 120. However, Siegfried Wagner, the musician, had not been able to escape from inheriting the prejudices of his father. Ludwig said that Siegfried fully subscribed to his father's written opinion that the Jew is the plastic demon of decay. So I'm just trying to point out by doing this on this book, these particular pages, is there is a worldwide knowledge amongst a lot of people. Some people trying to expose what they perceive as the Jews trying to bring about control of the world from Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And we know now that after they got a small portion of the Palestinians' land in 1947, they now own most of it. And now there's even maps showing Greater Israel, something 1,000 times bigger, from the Euphrates in Iraq to the Nile. So we can understand why 911 was done, part of the Hegelian dialectic. Cause one thing so you can do another and fool all the people, deceive all the people. And we know why they have to probably microchip everybody. And after there is some world event, a world war or something to cause martial law, a nuclear bomb, or whatever, economic collapse worldwide. And they will have people turning in their friends and neighbors. You said, do you know anybody who believes in conspiracy theories? We need to purge them from the public so we can bring order to the world and end all this chaos and anarchy. They're going to intentionally, in my opinion, from what I've been reading and seeing, they're going to cause a really terrible situation so everybody will cry to be saved. And they will turn in their brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers if they're conspiracy theorists and believe in Jesus or Christianity, or there's a plot to enslave everybody while they're enslaving everybody and chipping everybody. And why do they have to chip everybody? Because they're going to have to monitor everybody's move. It's like on a computer. In bitter, virulent language, Richard Wagner denounced the parasitic Jews, page 120, as a completely alien element who were responsible for the corruption of the German spirit. In 1881, look how far back this goes. This is around the time when Albert Pike, the leader of the Freemasons, the southern jurisdiction of the United States, wrote the letter that 3 world wars would be required. In 1881, he wrote a letter to his patron, King Ludwig II of Bavaria, in which he described the Jews as a congenital entity of humanity and all that is noble of it. One of Wagner's most notorious diatribes against the Jews was his essay entitled Jewry in Music, written in 1850. So again, what I'm trying to point out here is this problem, this battle with most people, we citizens, as pawns. And if you weren't somebody like me who's in his 11th year of trying to find out what the heck is going on, and when I started this in 2005, I had no idea. I don't think I ran into this stuff until a year or two ago, when things kept popping up and popping up. I was collecting newspaper press releases and researching things like the Rosicrucians and the Druids. I had no idea where it was leading. But it seems to keep leading somewhere, and it seems this New World Order is real. The Pope's calling for it. The things the government's doing seem to be preparing for it. So maybe we ought to wake up and just go buy this book. And some of the other books I've read. And that's why I decided not to try to just investigate incidences and write a book. I thought it would be much more powerful for me to read books and reintroduce them out into the public. Read book reviews. people, maybe more of these books will be sold, and these people who, the authors, will make more money, and I'll be happy. He dramatically removed the gloves when he proceeded to Weber's Ingenti Overture. So apparently he was insulting the Jewish people. He played one song with gloves on, and then when he played another song, he took the gloves off. Get it? Taking the gloves off. When critics rebuked Wagner, the musician, for this malicious gesture, he called them a pack of vagabond Jews. Now remember, there are a lot of Jewish people trying to warn the rest of us. PhD Canadian author Henry Macau, who wrote the book Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. And the Illuminati are the Zionist Jewish folks, in my opinion. It was Rothschild that spearheaded the Balfour Agreement and owns much of the land in Israel, causing the death of all the Palestinians. And now, apparently, even the town I'm living in, I was in the local newspaper, they have made some agreement to bring 150 of these people from the Middle East to this little town I live in. Why are they being forced to leave all the land? Then I'm thinking, wait a minute, the greater Israel's from the Euphrates to the Nile. And they are bombing all those pictures. If you go on Zionism and images, they've bombed all those residential properties and other properties to smithereens. The pictures just describe everything. They destroyed it all. Jet planes and bombs. And so they're completely wiping the landscape clean of an area maybe half the size of the United States. And all those people are being forced into Europe and the U.S. and elsewhere. And they plan on destroying our cultures too. Count de Gobine's essay on the inequality of races, written in 1855, proclaimed the superiority of the white Aryan race and the inferiority of all other races. Wagner helped make the book famous, and eventually it became a pillar of Nazi racial theory through its propaganda by Wagner's disciples, especially his son-in-law Houston Stewart Chamberlain, combining the radical ideas of Nietzsche, Gobineau, and Wagner. Chamberlain produced The Foundations of the 19th Century, 1899, which became one of the seminal works of the Nazi movement, and a book that Kaiser Wilhelm believed had been sent to his people by God. So you have these white Germans who are resisting the Jewish control and the revolution over its country. So the Jewish people controlled the media, and after World War I, they controlled the government. And millions of Germans died, a lot of them starvation, executed. And now I think it's over there in these countries in Europe. You couldn't be doing this book review. It would be, they would arrest you, maybe kill you. And apparently that'll come to the United States if we allow it. Wagner wrote numerous essays on art, music, and among them several anti-Semite essays. Know Thyself is his most rabidly racist essay. Declared that the German people were exposed defenseless against the incursions of the Jews, and that only when his countrymen awakened and stopped their petty political bickerings could the power of the Jews be broken. Now I'm going to say it again. Why would Chernoff be put in charge of Homeland Security of the United States if he's a dual citizen and his first allegiance is to his race, as is commonly known? And all these other people, Alan Greenspan, and so many more as I've gone over, so many more people. And this is probably worldwide. And they got these books saying they're going to take over the world. So if we believe what they say, because we can see what they're doing, what they say is what they're doing. But you're not supposed to admit that or discuss that, or you're an anti-Semite. And I disagree with that. I am pro-United States of America. I believe in the 10 Commandments. I think we should treat each other how we want to be treated. I don't hate black people. I don't hate gay people. I don't hate Jewish people. I don't hate anybody. I'm a spiritual being in this biological body. When I leave this planet, I'll have to answer to God. And if I hated people and I wanted to abduct people for witchcraft or Illuminati or Jewish Talmudic rituals and sacrifice people to death, they're going to have to answer before God. I think that's completely insane and wrong. Deceiving the people. Secret organizations like the Freemasons joining and swearing, getting your throat cut, killed, if you don't keep all the secrets. Or in the second degree, getting your stomach ripped open. And it gets more horrific as you go up in the degrees. In his last opera, Parsifal represented the Aryan struggle to maintain his racial purity and to prevent any sexual contact leading to the amalgamation of Aryan blood with inferior races. So apparently the white people wanted to keep their race pure. But then I'm thinking, wait a minute, in Israel right now, that's like a law. Only the Jewish people can immigrate there, and they're seriously discouraged to marry outside that race. So who's really the racist? The rest of the world is supposed to be a gigantic mixing pot and microchipped and enslaved after they depopulate the planet. But only the Jewish people can move to Israel and intermarry there or live there. And they're taking over everything from the Euphrates to the Nile. And they have nukes. And they control Homeland Security, the Federal Reserve, and other things. And there's tons of videos on YouTube by people smarter than me saying these things. I just keep seeing videos and websites and buying books. This book was published (1978). 1978. Think about it. Since then, what have we seen happen? 9/11. Most of the Arabs displaced, murdered, and their properties all destroyed. Crazy goings on in the United States, Jade Helm, and other things. All right, trying to move on here. So we did just say that apparently the Aryans struggle, the Germans, to maintain his racial purity and to prevent any sexual contact leading to the amalgamation of the alien blood with inferior races. And I'm saying that's going on in Israel right now. And they have something called Aliyah. They've been running that program for the last 50, 60 years, where they're trying to bring all the Jewish people back to Israel from all over the world. And they do some very dastardly deeds and cause a lot of problems to encourage those Jews to leave. So they'll fabricate problems for the Jews and hatred just to get them to leave. And what, from 1947, 48 to 1970 something, according to some published material, 90 billion in aid was given to Israel during that time period, when the rest of the whole world didn't get 90 billion. And in 2008, when they crashed the stock market, trillions were given to these banksters, probably needing the money to further their world empire and taking over the world and bringing about the New Age and New World Order, depopulating the planet, controlling the United Nations, global warming, global cooling, climate change, biodiversity, sustainability, Agenda 21, and so much more. And all the deceitful propaganda in the news, with all the fear, propaganda, planet X coming, pole shifting, earthquakes, Yellowstone, plagues, diseases, terrorists, on and on and on and on. And so go my videos, on and on and on. I keep reading books. Many of Wagner's essays were so radical that they can only be compared with the barbaric outpourings of Nazi propaganda. Unlike Nietzsche's writings, which the Nazis had to edit and trim and take out of context, Hitler read all of Wagner's writings. So Wagner, the composer, famous composer, was one of Hitler's fans. I mean, Hitler worshipped Wagner and said that the composer's political essays were his favorite reading. That's what Hitler said. Hitler never hesitated to acknowledge his debt to Wagner. Whoever wants to understand National Socialist Germany must know Wagner. Now, what I'm trying to do here with this book is just get behind some of the thinking between the two parties. Apparently the communist Jewish people who want to take over the world, and people who wanted to defend the world or defend their own country from these people, national, Hitler, socialist. And even in Germany, in Hitler's own party, and in their own country, they had the big debate about how far socialism should go. I mean, you know, if you can't just give everybody free money, and if they don't work and create something, where's the money going to come from? Who's going to grow the corn and raise the cattle and build the trains and mine the coal? And who's going to organize all that? So like I said, I'm not a far rightist or a far leftist. I'm for some happy medium, that we have a good planet and the wealthy don't go to such an extreme like they're doing now. And the poor can't go to such an extreme thinking they're going to get everything for free. There needs to be a happy medium. Like Jesus taught, treat others how you want to be treated. I think that should pretty much do the job. And then, of course, the Ten Commandments, which these Luciferians and Satanist people say restricts their liberties. You can't tell us what to do. Adulteries, you can't tell us we can't cheat on our spouses or have sex with children. How dare you tell me what I can't do? That's their philosophy. It's sick. Raping men, women, enslaving them, bribing them, making them do insane things just to eat, bribing our politicians, corrupting everything. Is anybody going to disagree with that those things are wrong? Their Hitler told them about a coup, which the Nazis were planning to enact in 1923. Long after Hitler left the Wagner home, Wigfried was still talking about him. At luncheon, she said she felt that he was destined to be the savior of Germany. 1923, that's what people thought of Hitler. Remember, World War II didn't start till 1939, 1940. Quite a few years away. And at that time, the communist, Zionist, Jewish people were controlling Germany after the Versailles Treaty, after World War I, where Germany was betrayed by the very Jews in Germany and all over the world, so that the Rothschild Zionist Illuminati folks could get the Palestinians land to create, as biblically prophesized, so they say, the Palestinians and Arabs' lands to control the world from, which have all the monuments to the ancient gods, like the Sphinx and the pyramids. So all the dots connect again. It's not a new age, it's a return to the old age. Like Hitler, Siegfried hated the Social Democrats and communists. Again, I'm trying to show you the picture of the mind thinking back then. Communism is not good. That means you get told where you have to go to work, what you have to think. There's no freedom. People do not get that. Socialism, extreme form, is communism, and it was created by these Illuminati, Zionist, Jewish folks, and other people involved in the mystery school of Babylon, some kind of satanic religion or worship, witchcraft. He could never understand or forgive the Kaiser's flight and had no sympathy with the Weimar Republic, which failed. The Communist Revolution and resulting bloodshed throughout Germany distressed Siegfried to no end. So after World War I, the Communist Revolution resulting in bloodshed throughout Germany distressed Siegfried. So here you have all these communist Jewish people after World War I killing the Germans and enslaving the people. Is there any doubt that They would be considered the enemy in World War II. In the United States, they rounded up a lot of Japanese people and put them in camps. Just saying. Despite Siegfried's disdain for the decadent Jewish culture, I didn't write that, it's on page 123 here, decadent Jewish culture. So apparently wherever they went, they took the Christianity or the decent cultures and brought us the pornography and sexual decadency. And a lot of the lower people, uneducated, bought up on it, fell for it, were deceived, beguiled. You can do whatever you want. You can get a bunch of people into a building and have a gigantic orgy. Why not? Even though God doesn't like that, and apparently destroyed a couple cities because of that. Tower of Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah, and destroyed the planet a couple times with the sinking of Atlantis and the Great Flood because of that, if you read Atlantis and ancient histories. So the creator of all of this apparently wants a world like what Jesus taught, to treat each other how you want to be treated, and not having men have sex with animals and other such activities, and children. Which I think should be common sense. So despite Siegfried's disdain for the decadent Jewish culture which pervaded Germany and the impotent political crowd in Berlin, he remained politically inactive until 1923. So this book goes into great detail on how Hitler came into power and the reasons and purposes behind it. On November 9th, 1923, and I think the United States at that time was in the Great Depression, Siegfried and his wife went to Munich. The Great Depression or Prohibition, we were having problems in the United States after those hundreds of thousands, if not million or millions, of the Yiddish Bolshevik Jewish people were shipped to the United States after World War I. The country was having lots of problems. The code of ethics and stuff like that in business was gone out the toilet. All right, so Siegfried in 1923 went to Munich. He discovered that the concert had been canceled. This was the musician from Wagner. Because of the Nazi push, so the Nazis actually attempted to take over the country, Germany, to retake the country back, had begun the night before in Berger Bolker. The Wagner's room in the hotel overlooked the Feuerhorn Hall, where the climax of the push took place. Hearing a commotion in the street, Siegfried and his wife peered out the window to see Hitler and General Ludendorff marching down the middle of the avenue and at the head of a company of stormtroopers in their brown uniforms. Suddenly, as the Nazis approached the side of the Feuerhorn Hall, they were stopped by a burst of machine gun fire. So the Nazis, the National Socialist Party, think about the word national, like the United States, Socialist Democratic Party. So the United States Democratic Party could also be described as the National Socialist Party. There was a big fight even in Hitler's camp, his political party, National Socialists. Some of them were leaning towards the capitalists, the industrialists, the coal miners, the steel manufacturers, and then some of them were really going towards the socialism that the communist Jewish people were trying to rile everybody up. And that's one of the ways that the Jewish people caused the revolution, is they get out there and they start riling up the people and tell them about how they need to fight for their rights and overthrow the elites. But these people in the background are sinister. They don't really care about the elites or the poor. They just want one to kill the other, so at the end of the game, they're going to be in charge. Again, the Hegelian dialectic. Siegfried was horrified to think that the Bavarian government would fire on General Ludendorff, the idol of all Germany. So the Wagners decided that they must help the Nazis in any way possible. Through Winfield's connections with the party members, she was able to discover a few days later that Hermann Göring had fled across the Australian border to Innsbruck, where he was lying in a hospital severely wounded. Immediately the Wagners, these musicians, Wagner's a famous musician, Richard Wagner, and his son was Siegfried, who took the helm, made the journey across the snow-covered mountains, passes to Göring's bedside. There they found he was being cared for by his wife, Karen, who was very ill herself, and without any money. Siegfried paid all their bills and arranged for them to go to Venice, where they lived for a year, in the Hotel Britannia, whose proprietor, a German friend of Siegfried's, never charged them a cent. Page 124. Detroit and its suburbs stuck in his memory as the least delightful scene. So this Siegfried Wagner, the son of Richard Wagner, the famous musician, went to the United States to see Henry Ford to secure some funds to support the National Socialist Party. And remember, this is 1923, 24. So 15 years before World War I, there was no reason to not support the National Socialist Party, other than they were the opponents of the communist revolutionary Jewish people who were stomping all over Germany, destroying the people, making the people live in terrible conditions. Embargoes, they couldn't have contracts, they couldn't expand and do business around the world. Germany was in a vice, and they were just cranking the vice tighter and tighter. So the people did support Hitler, or anybody else that would have come along. And I'm not praising Hitler. I'm not praising George Bush or Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. I think we could do better with leaders than these people, the Clintons. We could do better. We need to find better people. Despite the bleak appearance of Detroit and its gray, cold weather, their spirits were greatly lifted when they checked into the Statler Hotel, and the Wagoners found an invitation from the Fords already waiting. So they wanted to talk to Henry Ford, get some financial support. And Ford was having troubles in Germany. He couldn't sell his tractors or his cars. Siegfried talked a little. He said that he liked America and had a smile and a good word for everything. However, there was one subject which he refused to discuss. This is what Siegfried told the press. Politics. I won't talk politics. He said, it is a very unpleasant subject, and I would rather not think about it. And I know now if you go out in public and you try to talk politics, people will say, you're not supposed to talk politics in public. So the people who control our world, who program our minds, probably would like it that way. They're probably the ones who came up with the phrases and the mind thinking of that. You think? The next afternoon, Thursday, January 31, the Wagoners went to the Ford's home for an early supper 10 miles from Detroit. So these are the famous musicians, the Wagoners. And they went to Henry Ford's, the automaker's home, to talk about what was going on in 1924. There was no World War II. Hitler had never done anything wrong. And a lot of people were aware of the oppression caused by the Versailles Treaty, which was dominated by the communist Zionist Jewish folks. But soon the discussion became more serious, and I'm just reading my highlighted portions like I like to keep pointing out. Not doing a audiobook. Leading logically from one topic to another. Music, Wagner, Bayreuth, Germany, and finally politics in Germany. So I didn't know this, but apparently they had a meal, a simple but good meal of salad, fresh vegetables, and a very skimpy portion of meat, of which Ford disapproved because of his basically vegetarian health program. So that's an oddity. I read that Hitler was a vegetarian, and apparently Ford was a vegetarian. The conversation again rolled around to politics. In their discussion about the Jewish question, and the Nazis, Frag Wagner, Siegfried's wife. And Ford did most of the talking, while Siegfried only added an appropriate comment now and then. So apparently Siegfried, 45, married 18-year-old Fran many years earlier, after they had 4 or 5 children, and she got older and he got older. She really jumped in and started taking a little control of the family businesses, family affairs. And she was very much a supporter of Hitler and had met him. So apparently she was quite the leader, Siegfried's wife, Fran Wagner. At first, Fran Wagner was a bit surprised that Ford could express himself so well on political topics. He explained to the Wagners that the Jews had a tremendous power in the United States, America, and that their influence was growing every day. He was trying, through the articles of the Dearborn Independent, a newspaper he bought, he said, to provide a course of instruction for the American people on the conspiracy of the Jews. So what did I say? This book was written 1978. And I've gone over a lot of books, nobody can deny. This is what was written in 1978 by these authors, their research. James Pool, Suzanne Pool, Who Financed Hitler? The Secret Funding of Hitler, Rise to Power from 1919 to 1933. Go buy the book. Let me not infringe on copyright and be doing a book review, and recommend you go buy the book. He said he bought the newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, to provide a course of instruction for the American people on the conspiracy of the Jews. Then they spoke about the threat of communism in Europe, the Versailles Treaty, and the power of the Jews over the press. All these things I'm saying, and it's in all these books I'm reading. All these authors can't be lying. And we know if you get in, really become effective and you're getting the word out, you'll probably wind up being neutralized, which means murdered or imprisoned. That's why they made hate laws, because now if you say you don't approve of sodomy, then you're a hater, you're a Christian. You're going to be prosecuted, persecuted, prosecuted, both. It's a concerning issue. The philosophy and ideas of Ford and Hitler were very similar. He knew all about the National Socialist movement. National Socialist movement. It doesn't sound like a bad thing. The country takes care of its own people. National Socialist. We got that going on here in the United States. Tea parties. Black Lives Matter. There's all these things that are created to get people stirred up. Because there's a problem. That's why people need to be stirred up. Or I should say they're being stirred up by the bad people. And they're not being told the truth of why they're being stirred up. But before the Frag Wagner had time to gently bring up the subject of Hitler's need of money and suggest the possibility of a contribution, Ford himself mentioned the matter. Ford told me, Fran Wagner recalled, that he had helped to finance Hitler with money sent from the sales of automobiles and trucks, and that he had sent to Germany. Ford smiled and made a vague comment about still being willing to support someone like Hitler. This is 1924. Hitler was really nobody. Who was working to free Germany from the Jews. Finally, Fran Wagner asked if a special representative sent by Hitler, Kurt Ludek, might be given an appointment to talk with Ford and discuss the matter of further cooperation between Hitler and Ford in detail. Ford nodded in his assent and said he would be very interested to talk with the fellow. Ludek recalled, her charming smile told me she had been successful. He was to see Ford the next day and explain any further details about the Nazi Party. So Fran went back to the motel, said to Ludek, "You're going to have an appointment tomorrow with Henry Ford," and promote the case for some aid to Germany to get from underneath the grip of the communist Illuminati, Zionist Jewish folks, which I feel is the threat to the United States right now. Why they want to do whatever they're going to do, and what they are doing now. And they control the press and the media. and the sky spraying and the HAARP things. They're going to turn on HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, apparently in the news, again in 2017, 5 months from now? Why? Do they want to have a gigantic microwave aimed at the sky and beamed over your city? Apparently there's a lot of people around there with detectors, and they can tell when they turn it on. So they had to announce they're going to do it because they're going to do it. So just some concerning things to think about. And I'm only having this conversation on this book and all the other books I do because I want people to think about it. I want to think about it. I want to find out what's going on. Maybe I should just try to buy a plane ticket to Ecuador and escape instead of making these videos and share what I'm reading. It crosses my mind every now and then. And I suppose a lot of other people would like to escape the insanity in the world right now. All this continuous bombardment of global warming that appears to be a fraud. Even Donald Trump said it's a big hoax. And then they say it's the hottest year ever, 2016. But then I'm looking up and I'm seeing all that sky spraying of like heavy metals. And apparently they can see ripples in it, so maybe they're microwaving those particles and actually heating up the planet, which I'm not the first person to say might be happening. There are a lot of smarter people than me saying this is going on. Remember the report from Iron Mountain, that book published, that had all the plans how they would deceive the people and create all these artificial fears. Environmental, sustainability, water, food, terror. Go find the book. It's probably free. You can download it in PDF form online. The report from Iron Mountain, or the Protocols of Zion, or the Jewish Utopia, and many others. So after Siegfried Wagner had the concert in Detroit, one reviewer of the concert commented that the audience was not as large as it might have been, considering the predominance of the German descendants in Detroit. So the predominance of German descent in Detroit. I didn't make that up. It's in the book, page 127. Alright, Siegfried later discovered that one of his enemies spread a rumor that the Wagners had contributed to the Hitler push, where they tried to take over the government. All the money for the reopening of the festival, some of which had been contributed by Wagner enthusiasts throughout the world. So they were trying to say the money that people from all over the world who were trying to have the festival reopened that was closed down after World War I, and the Versailles treatment, and the suppression of the people in the country of Germany of making any money and surviving. So people all over the world were sending money so they could reopen up that Wagner concerts and the festival. So they were accusing him of sending that money to Hitler. Although it is not true that Siegfried financed the push, he had given money to the Gorings. Certainly Franz Wagner had always been a generous contributor to the Nazi Party, but her gifts never amounted to any great sums of money. And again, this is 1924. World War II started in 1939, 1940. So it's almost 15 years away. There was nothing wrong with the National Socialist Party, other than the communist Jewish folks, Illuminati, Kabbalah, Talmud, world-dominating folks wanted to suppress any free speech and the growth of Germany, which started World War I in the first place. Hard-working German people were punished for being hard-working German people. And they were betrayed by the Jews in their own country with the Balfour Agreement. And I'm sure a lot of Jews in Germany were not happy with that. They were happy in Germany. They had been rescued and fled from Russia. Richard Wagner, some of his compositions, I guess that's what you call it when you're a musician with a big orchestra. Richard Wagner, not much in the big orchestra music. Some of his songs were or music compositions were The Flying Dutchman, Siegfried Idel, Tristan and Isolde, Tannhauser, whatever they are, and 2 of Siegfried's own compositions, the Alm of the Hustenstoff and Sonnenflammen. Anyways, I'll let you read it. The next morning, at 9, Leibold, Ford's secretary, picked up Leduc at the hotel and drove him out to meet Ford. So the Wagners came all the way from Germany, stopped in at London, went to Detroit, United States, all to meet Ford so they could get some support to help turn around Germany. It sounds reasonable. Leduc described him as the Dearborn independent in the flesh. He describes Ford as clear, bright eyes, and his strong face, almost free from wrinkles. This is Ford, Henry Ford, and did not betray his more than 60 years. Leduc observed his friendly gray eyes, his firm, pleasant voice, his lean figure, and well-shaped head, which had shown character and race. Leduc opened the conversation. All right, moving on. 2 more pages. And this is just a small snapshot of what's in this book. Page 128. As soon as Hitler came to power, Leduc explained, one of his first acts would be to inaugurate the social and political program which had been advocated in the Dearborn Independent. So they were all happy with what was in Henry Ford's newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, where Henry Ford, the automaker in the United States of America, apparently a decent guy, was trying to warn all the people about the goings-on with these bad Jewish people in the United States, not to be confused with all the Jewish people, like Rabbi Marvin Antelman writing the books to eliminate the opate meaning your ability or your praying and belief in God or Jesus. They want to eliminate religion. So maybe if Rabbi Marvin Antelman would have put that as the title, to eliminate religion, but then again, they do have in a religion, the evil folks, and that would be the satanic religion. But they don't want you to know that you have psychic powers and that your prayer and your talking to God works. You know, there are some situations or examples in history about healing. Let's say a lady was very ill, and they would gather 3 or 4 people around the lady. These are indigenous tribes and stuff like that. And everybody would chant and pray for days and heal the person. So this power of prayer and the non-physical reality around us, communication with God, apparently is real. And these Satanists, Luciferians, into their magic circles with the stars and their rituals and sacrificing people is real. And they're able to mess with our minds all over the world and deceive people into believing that's not real. And that the Christians and the people who believe in Jesus and other good people are actually the evil ones. How dare they be opposed to one guy marrying another guy and then adopting little children? Changing our whole culture. Why? I don't think they should be able to change the culture without the people being informed and educated and told the truth. Why do they have all these secrets in the Freemasons and all these other organizations where they have to swear on a Bible or something, whatever country you're in? So if it's an Arab Bible or a Christian Bible or American, or maybe the Hindu or whatever these Freemasonic lodges are, they swear on that local Bible. That's what I'm trying to say. That under threat of death, having their throat cut, they have to keep all the secrets. Why? Why? What secrets are they trying to keep? The stuff I'm talking about? That a lot of other people throughout history probably have been murdered for trying to divulge? But it was urgent that Hitler be successful soon, or the Jews would destroy Aryan solidarity by drawing corrupt politicians into a war between the countries of the whole white world, Well, we can see right now they're seriously diluting the whiteness of America. I believe intentionally. And, of course, they're into the birth control and killing babies, and they're changing the culture of America. And I don't know what gives them the right to intentionally do that by destroying all those Middle Eastern countries, bombing all their buildings to smithereens, and shipping those people to the United States in the middle of the night, making deals with cities and towns, like the stuff I read in the paper the other day here in the mountains of North Carolina. So they must be doing it everywhere. So this guy Ludwig was arguing the case for Hitler and the National Socialist Party. Be successful soon, or the Jews would destroy the Aryan solidarity by drawing corrupt politicians, we got that going on, into a war between the countries of the white world. Ford listened attentively, hearing things he could not learn from American newspapers, which he thought were controlled by the Jews. Money, said Ludwig, was the only obstacle that stood between the Nazis and the fulfillment of in Germany of Ford and Hitler's mutual views. He explained that the time was not ripe to unseat the Jews from their positions of power in the United States, but that Germany, because of her geographical position, her historic past, and the terrific pressure of her present suffering. Sometimes I have a turkey walk up behind me, or an animal. I can hear it. Anyways, because of her geographic positioning, her historic past, and terrific pressure of her present suffering, was the country which was to become the torchbearer of liberation from the Jews. So this is 14 years before World War II. And after World War I, where the Germans were betrayed by the very Jews they were hosting, who were fleeing from Russia, had betrayed them to get the Palestinians land. And they plan on world domination. They created the communists, and there's a long history, I've gone over the books, of creating revolutions in countries, getting the workers against the people who own businesses, totally uprooting all kinds of normalcy. And they weren't doing it to help the poor people. Let's make that point really clear. The poor people suffered worse afterwards, after their society was destroyed, like over there with all the Arab Springs all over the Middle East. Nothing is better, it's worse in Iraq. It's meant to destroy and remove all those people. These people, these communist, Zionist, Jewish folks, Illuminati types, who are bringing about the new one world religion, satanic serpent worship, I guess. And whatever they do, they'll have everybody turning in their mother and father and brother and sister and friends to get some food if you think somebody's into believing these conspiracy theories, which are apparently true facts as I'm reading in these books I'm going over. And I'm certainly not going over one book and making a mental decision like that. I've gone over hundreds of books and magazines, hundreds of magazines. 10,000 maybe press releases. Thousands of videos I watched. And I'm not alone, I'm not bragging. A lot of other people have done more work than me. They made the videos I watched. They wrote the books like this. I'm just spending some time trying to read and give my interpretation, which some people will believe and not believe. But if I was sitting down at the jazz club tonight, and I mention any of this, and somebody happens to be Jewish, he's going to be offended that I'm even looking into this stuff that happened in Germany or in the United States after World War I, and all the other things that are going on with these people controlling Hollywood and the pornographic industry and the liquor industry, our educational industries, the medical industry, all of the economy, the banks, and everything else. And they have some seriously malevolent plans for us. Encouraged, Ludwig continued to elaborate on the fact that Hitler's success or failure was a world issue involving the future of America as much as that of any other nation. So we can see now that it's gotten worse. These people who are trying to create the New World Order, the New Age. the decadency, the rituals during the Grammys, the Emmys, the Super Bowl halftime shows, the Olympic openings, the Bet Awards, the TV shows, Gotham, Texas Rangers, with all portraying we people like really nasty beings. And those satanic rituals, the opening of the tunnel in Switzerland, with the beings with horns. Katy Perry's done it. Madonna's done it. I suppose I'm a little patriotic. That's why I get a little emotional. I loved the country I grew up in. As a child, I grew up in Maine. I got older, I lived in Florida. I got older than that, and that heat was annoying me. I came to the mountains of North Carolina. I went out to Santa Fe. I've lived up in Long Island. Been down to a lot of time in Mexico, the Yucatan. Beautiful country, great people. But the disparity between the wealthy and the poor is horrible, and I believe that's what they want to do here in the United States, and they have all but destroyed the middle class. They don't want any of us to be able to think and speak for ourselves. You will be persecuted and prosecuted. But considering that Ludwig was a Nazi, one can certainly expect him to deny that Ford gave any money. So this is these authors trying to justify the secrecy to Hitler. Because, you know, big industrialists like Henry Ford shouldn't be given to political parties. It could go against the industrialists, the company. A promise from the Nazis to keep silent about the financial contribution was probably part of the bargain which Ford requested. Despite Ludwig's denial of any transfer of money at the time, he carefully pointed out that Ford's reputation was at stake. No man in the public eye can endow an insurgent revolution, so that's what they call it, insurgency, like in Iraq. You know, the country's been bombed to smithereens, and some guy's coming up, wait a minute, I need some milk and food for my wife and my children. Please stop the killing. That's called an insurgent, when you object to the oppression and the evil being bestowed upon you. If you object to it, you're an insurgent. So the oppressors are looking for insurgents, anybody who might object and be any kind of leadership to the peoples. They have to be eliminated. Insurgent revolutionary movement as casually as he would contribute to the fund for the homeless animals. Ludwig hinted at why he could not tell the truth without hurting Ford. The Jewish boycott, Ludwig said, pinched him in the ledgers where even a multimillionaire is vulnerable. So they were boycotting Henry Ford and hurting him financially with his automobile manufacturing company because he was telling the truth, what was happening at those times, his version of the truth, which anybody could go look up and investigate for themselves if they were allowed. On their return voyage, the wagoners stopped in Rome to meet Mussolini. Siegfried wrote in his diary, "He, Mussolini, is all will, strength, and almost brutality. Fanatic expression in his eyes, but without the light of love, as in Hitler's and Ludendorff." So it's really hard to put a handle on the publishers what their opinion is. They're defending light of love in Hitler's eyes, so I suppose they're just quoting other books, being factual. A splendid race of people, the Romes. A man like that rules Italy, and Bert Hartchen rules us. It is really pitiful to see Germany sunk so low. So again, Germany's crime, World War I now, not World War II, was that it was growing, was very prosperous. It was an industrial nation. The German people were working very hard, and decent folks. And they were so decent and nice, when the Jews were fleeing the oppression in Russia, they were giving safe haven and started businesses, bought businesses, banks, money, were thriving. But the bad Jews during World War I saw an opportunity when England, Britain was losing the war. And they controlled Woodrow Wilson. They didn't control the president before Woodrow Wilson because they wanted him to do some things that he said no to. So you know what the Jews in New York said? They said, well, we'll put our man in the presidency that we can control. FYI. And it's been that way ever since, in my opinion. And many other people's opinion. And the evidence speaks for itself. Look at the presidents we've had recently. Crazy. And playing on the people's minds. A man coming out of nowhere, Obama. But they have to go find these people. They have to have a strategic plan. The Hegelian dialectic. Divide and conquer. Henry Ford's reward from Hitler finally came in 1938. When on his 75th birthday, he was awarded the Grand Cross of the Supreme Order of the German Eagle. Ford was the first American and fourth person in the world to receive this medal, which was the highest decoration which could be given to the non-German citizen. And remember, this is 38, so almost a year and a half, 2 years before the start of World War II. So I did go look up that medal, which is kind of interesting, because I am into the symbolism, mystery cult of Babylon, all the different symbols of the Freemasons, Illuminati, the witchcraft people, the Rosicrucians, the Illuminati, the Zionists, the Jesuits, and all these organizations, the Knights of Malta, the cross of the Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus. So anyways, this is a picture of the Grand Cross of the Supreme Order of the German Eagle. You can go look it up. But notice the eagles in the that white cross. Looks like a, and then a little SWAT stickers. And the SWAT stickers are clearly some kind of occult religious symbol. So is the eagle. So and you can see the fleur-de-lis, the little flower thing on the top there. So Germany gave that to medal to Henry Ford prior to World War II. Nothing wrong here. No bunch of Jews weren't murdered or nothing. There was no war. World War I was many years ago. 25 years ago at this time. Then I thought to myself, wow, didn't Bill Clinton and Oprah and a bunch of people get the Freedom Medal in America? So I thought I'd show that to show some similarities and some more occult symbolism. Medal of Freedom in the United States, given to Bill Clinton and Oprah. And I'm still scratching my head. Why would this medal be given to Bill Clinton? Why did Obama get the Peace Award? And again, we notice on it the eagles and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 stars. That's an evil number. On the tarot deck, the 13 is the card of death. Witches' covens, they have 13 witches that make up a coven. The Druids have 13 stones in their magic things. And so you've got a pentagon and a circle, which is a witch's symbol, on the Freedom Medal. So when witches do witchcraft to communicate with the beings on the other side, they draw a big circle and they put a pentagram inside a star. And it's on the Medal of Freedom that they gave to Clinton. And it's got the eagles and the 13 number there. And I just noticed that there were some similarities on the Grand Cross of the Supreme Order of the German Eagle given to Henry Ford with the eagles. So I suspect I printed these out this big so that I could spend more time looking at them when I'm doing other book reviews on these occult subjects. And I'll probably be able to put more pieces of the puzzle together what these things mean. part of my research. Alright, I'm going to finish up this video. The decoration was given in recognition of Ford's pioneering in making motor cars available to the masses. Hitler's personal congratulatory message accompanied the award. Prior to World War II, nothing horrible's happened, except for Hitler is trying to fend off and get rid of the communist, Zionist, Jewish Illuminati control over the country of Germany, which was betrayed during World War I. Page 129, almost finished with this video. American Jews and the leftist press voiced strong objections to Ford's acceptance of the award from Nazi Germany. So prior to World War II, the Jewish-owned media in the United States were aware of this medal and had voiced strong objections. During a speech to a woman's, get this, 1924 here, 1938, I'm sorry, 1938, prior to World War I. You don't think there's a Zionist movement trying to rule the world from Mount Zion? That's what Zionism means. It says right on this book, page 129. During a speech to a woman's Zionist organization, the Jewish entertainer Eddie Canton called Ford a damn fool for permitting the world's greatest gangster. World War II hadn't even happened. The world's greatest gangster to give him a citation. He told his audience, the more men like Ford we have, the more we must organize and fight. So he's talking to Zionist women, and Ford, who's trying to, in the United States, fend off the communist control, which are the Jewish Illuminati Zionist World New Order folks. So Henry Ford was trying to fight that here in the United States at the same time that Adolf Hitler was trying to fight that with the National Socialist Party. And it wasn't just Adolf Hitler, it was the whole party with all kinds of people. The Democratic Party isn't just John Kerry or Hillary, it's a whole bunch of people. The Republican Party isn't just Donald Trump, it's a whole bunch of people. The National Socialist Party was a whole bunch of people. It says my battery's dying, so I better try to finish this video up. So the more men like Ford we have, the more we must organize and fight. But the most bitter criticism came from Harold Ikes, Secretary of the Interior for the United States. Speaking at the Cleveland Zionist Society, he denounced Ford and other Americans who ostensibly have accepted tokens of contemptuous distinction at a time when the bestower of them counts the day lost when he can commit no new crime against humanity. So they were really angry before World War II with Hitler for trying to get rid of the communist influence over the country. Despite all objections, Ford was determined not to be given into their demands. He told a friend, "They, the Germans, sent me this ribbon band, this medal. They, the critics, told me to return it or else I'm not an American." And Henry Ford said, "I'm going to keep it." And all I want to say is 1938, these Zionist Jewish folks were in New York City and Cleveland and Detroit were accusing Hitler of being a very evil man when he hadn't done anything other than try to get rid of the Versailles and communist Jewish influence control of the country, which was treating people horribly bad, which is why Hitler came into power in the first place. If they weren't being treated so horribly bad, Hitler could have probably never made it to power. Just interesting to learn this here. So this was in 1938. I made a little note here to myself. Ford's birthday. Before the war, well, no horrific thing ever happened that they're accusing Hitler or Germany of. No putting Jews in gas chambers in 1938. Nothing like that. Just the historic thing of the Germany being betrayed by the Jews they were taking into their country after they fled Russia before World War I. With the Balfour Agreement as an excuse to control President Wilson and Britain to get the Palestinians land. And what's it say here? One more time and I'll end this video. accepting tokens of contemptuous distinction at a time when the bestower of them, that would be Germany, Hitler, counts the day lost when he can commit no new crime against humanity. So they were demonizing Hitler for trying to free his country and get the people out of poverty and suffering prior to World War II. That was the thinking, and apparently from my reading here, a lot of people all over the world knew it and were supporting the Nationalist Socialist Party, i.e. Hitler, trying to find a leader who could stop all this insanity. And my point is, apparently it's happening here in the United States and the world right now. They control the money. They crashed the stock market in 2008. They did 911. They're sky-spraying chemicals. They got HARP transmitters and monitoring everybody. We all know this. Nothing has changed, it seems. We need to wake up. I'm not anti-Jewish. I think there's a lot of good Jewish people trying to warn us. I'm not anti-gay. I don't dislike any gay guy. But I don't like the United Nations feeding all this decadent, perverted stuff to our kids and people. And I'm certainly not interested in lowering the age of consent to children to have sex with dirty old men, etc., etc., etc. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.